Henry. There we go. Thank you, Henry. Okay, it is now 6 o'clock, and I hereby call this special meeting of the San Benito Planning Commission to order. Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Toledo, if you could please lead us in the pledge.
Absolutely.
Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we could get a roll call, please.
Yes. District 1 Representative, Vincent Ringhaden.
Present.
District 2 Representative, Richard Way.
Present.
District 3 Representative, Robert Scagliotti.
Present.
District 4 Representative, Robert Gibson.
Present.
District 5 Representative, Celeste Toledo Bocanegra.
Present.
Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. And department announcements, if we could just do an introduction, please.
Hi, I would like to introduce Rebecca Mojica. She's coming as one of our new attorneys with Prentice and Long, representing the Resource Management Agency. And Rebecca, would you like to provide some background on yourself?
Oh, well.
Hi everyone, so I'm Rebecca. As I started introducing myself a moment ago, I'm from Hollister. I went to law school at Santa Clara University, and I'm excited to be here, part of the county.
Excellent. Thank you and welcome to the team. Thank you. Consent agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda, which consists of the certificate of posting? Don't all rush to it. Scagliotti, who made the motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Public hearing 5.1. Okay.
So last week, the applicant withdrew the application, and so we had already posted as such. We had to still agendize it on the Planning Commission packet.
Okay, thank you. So that will not be proceeding.
Correct.
On to item 5.2, presentation and reading of ordinance amendments to Title 23 subdivisions, Chapter 01, etc.
All right, good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Steve Liu, Public Works Administrator. We are here to have this public hearing to review the ordinance amendments that this commission. So essentially what I've done for this presentation, I just take the agenda packet and put it on PowerPoint. Do we have to read the entire amendment, or what's the protocol for the revisions?
The commission can vote to forego the reading if they would like, since it was posted online, I believe.
Okay, and I'll definitely pause and we can discuss, and I just want to know if I had to read everything, so thank you.
No,
for that
you don't.
clarification. So,
Okay, that's fine. And then we can go to public comment and then we can tear it apart?
Correct.
Okay, sounds like fun.
Okay, so I'll go to, if it's okay with the Planning Commission, I'll go to the red line changes for the proposed amendments. And we're going to start in chapter 23.01, and we have a definition change. And Ariel might want to help clarify the definition that we've added, which is urban level services. We added a definition that I think pertains to other parts of the code and some things that the county is working on. And the definition for urban level services is inserted into the amendment into the code as follows. For incorporated areas, a legal parcel is wholly within the boundaries of an urbanized area or urban cluster as designated by the United States Census Bureau. So that's a definition that we're proposing to add to the code, and I can pause there. It comes from the Subdivision Map Act, so we're just trying to get it our code up to date. And then I will slowly go through these, and I will pause, and then I guess I'll pause for questions, and I won't read everything. I'll just review, and I'll highlight the amendments where there was a slight change from previous, but are there any, I'll keep going until one of the commissioners.
We'll just wait till the end, I think, to go through it all.
Okay, sounds great. So then we jump to chapter 23.17, improvements. The first paragraph A, we basically just added another paragraph, so we had to add the A in, and then paragraph B was as previously shown in previous meetings verbatim. So we'll jump over to section 2317.003. And I do want to point out on this first paragraph, there was one revision, and I think that's the only one actually out of all the red lines here. So I'll discuss this one revision. So we did a little more research on CEQA within RMA. And so for section A1, all subdivisions of 5 or more lots shall have frontage improvement dedications, property dedications, and frontage improvements as required by the Title 23 of the Code for the full width of the road, or for every lot 50 feet of street length to be improved in its full width, not to exceed a quarter mile each direction of the property frontage within the county-owned right-of-way, whichever is greater. And then the remainder of the red lines are pretty much verbatim. So we did a little bit of research. So let's just say hypothetically there was a 1,000-lot subdivision. We actually have 2 of those currently being built in our county. For a 1,000-lot subdivision, if it was 50 feet for each lot, that would equal about 9.4 miles of street improvements to be required for full frontage or full width street improvements. There'd be 9 miles along that whole project frontage and beyond the project frontage for the property. So we did a little bit of research, and a quarter mile seemed to be somewhat what other agencies had utilized to extend beyond project frontages. So that was the one revision with this requirement. So I'll kind of go through the rest, and we can jump back to this one as directed by the chair. So the rest are all verbatim from previous meetings. Down below, item number 5 is also verbatim, recommended by the Planning Commission for placing deposits in an underground account. This page is all verbatim from previous, as far as I know, and we'll pause there. So I will pause there for, I guess, public comment.
Okay. Is there any public comment?
There appears to be no public comment.
Took care of that. Public comment is closed. Back to the commission. Start with Commissioner Ringhayden tonight. Do you have any comments, questions, concerns?
When you added up, just because I maybe have missed something or don't understand, you added up the properties and it was approximately 50 feet across, and you added those all up and it came to however many miles, but we're not doing that. We're going with a quarter mile. Is that my understanding?
Up to a quarter mile, correct. So the request from the commission was 50 feet of frontage per lot. And so we did some research for large subdivisions. And so for, say, 1,000-lot subdivision, which we actually have a couple developments that are 1,000 lots, times 50 feet, that's 50,000 feet of lanes, which equals about 9 miles. And the difficulty with that in CEQA is you're going to run into right-of-way that's narrow, and there's just, so we did a little bit of research, and a quarter mile kind of seemed to be reasonable per CEQA on beyond the project frontage. So, so I don't know if Ariel wants to add anything.
And Sean can add as well, but there is a requirement under that the improvements have to be related under Subdivision Map Act to a reasonable impact. And so trying to do 9 miles worth of improvements was far exceeding the term of reasonableness. And in researching, Sean can tell you, in researching the some case study against it.
Yes, exactly. Who determines reasonable? Because 9 miles is reasonable to me. So if you could clarify what case law has determined what is reasonable, please.
I mean, I would sort of rely on the research of planning and basing it on other sort of situations similar to ours. But there does need to be rough proportionality, and there needs to be a nexus, and it needs to be reasonable. So those things are obviously sort of amorphous terms, but the more circumscribed we are, the more likely it is to stand.
But the cars travel more than a quarter of a mile from their homes, which I don't understand how. I mean, the state, obviously, they have a lot of problems. But how can you say that there's only an impact within a quarter of a mile? People go to work, people go to school, people buy groceries. I mean, that doesn't make sense. I think we're getting the short end of the stick per usual.
Yeah, I mean, I would add that you can't add conditions that are meant to sort of remedy general problems within the county. So it needs to be related to the actual development and sort of tied to it.
So in our research, looking at other jurisdictions, this far exceeds other surrounding jurisdictions' requirements.
Okay. Commissioner Ringhaden, did you have any other?
Let me try to understand that. So not to kind of beat a dead horse, but a quarter mile doesn't seem like that much when you have 1,000. Well, let's just move on, because that's just my thought. Is it doesn't seem like that.
Oh, you're not alone.
You are more than welcome to propose revisions. We would need to, do you have some sort of backing to a reasonable or an example? Because this, what we were researching, we didn't find an example that went to this. This quarter mile is exceeding what we were able to find from other jurisdictions. Yeah, go ahead.
And something to keep in mind, depending on the size of the subdivision, but all our larger subdivisions, they have to perform an EIR, and the EIR actually will produce a traffic study, and that will specify impacts. For example, are we impacting an intersection so that we're creating queuing and backups at an intersection? So that'll be identified as an impact in the EIR. So that would be part of a condition of improvement if the traffic study said, hey, 2 miles away, this intersection is impacted. You need to put a signal there now. That's happened on some of our projects. And I could go into other examples, but I guess what I'm getting at is a traffic study will look at, I think, some of the things we're all concerned with and say, these are the impacts and this is what is needed. Now, the tricky part for all of us is what's fair for just rebuilding a roadway based on the homeowners that are moving into this subdivision. That's fair and reasonable. What we're trying to get at is not being challenged if we have a larger development that's processed through, and we say, well, we want you to build 9 miles of roads. Well, there's a real good chance they're going to say, well, that's $12 million, and we need to, we'll be challenging that potentially.
But divided by 1,000 units, that's kind of a drop in the bucket. When the guy on Fairview is going to walk away with over $100 million in his pocket, I can't cry for him too much if we ask him to spend $12 million. That's my thing.
Okay.
What's fair to the residents? Is it fair that he's going to walk away with $100 million and all we get are 2,000 more cars on the road?
Right.
I don't think so.
And what if we get an inadequate traffic study like we had happen already this year on a project?
Well,
An inadequate, so we need to take the time right here and now and get this rectified, because the traffic studies that I've seen don't work.
they're in favor of the developer.
Can I say something?
Okay.
And we can't worry about if they disagree. We have to build on this, especially because we have planning commissioners who really care about what's been going on. Our past planning commissioners maybe didn't think about it, so I'm not gonna put them in a bad light, but they didn't think about the impacts, and now we see the impact. So we have to move forward and not worry about if. We're not in that situation yet, so let's put us there, and then if it comes, we can't be worried about if, but we need to just put it out there.
Right, and I know Ariel wants to speak, so I'll try to be brief, but kind of back to County Council's original point is, a passenger vehicle on our road, believe it or not, you can have a lot of passenger vehicles on a road and not a lot of impacts. Now, when you get to larger trucks and loads and things, those are the impacts that affect our roads. And so, for example, when we did the landfill EIR, and there was a whole section on how some parts of roads are going to have to get rebuilt, and a chunk of money was going towards the roads because of the loads from the trucks on the road for the landfill. So there's a different proportionality between passenger vehicles and loaded trucks as well. So I'll pause there. We're just trying to avoid future challenges, I guess, to be fair and reasonable. It's difficult. It's subjective to some degree, right?
But we haven't given it the opportunity, so we shouldn't be avoiding any future challenges because we haven't been given the county that opportunity.
Yep. Let me go back to Commissioner Ringhayden and let him finish his comments, and then we'll go down the line.
Okay, so again, my comment was I just thought that wasn't enough, and then I'd wonder where, so that we can look, so I can look where you got your study information. That would be helpful to me, maybe.
So, so I think what we can do is maybe we can return and bring back our neighboring jurisdictions and what their requirements are for improvements, and then also maybe 5 rural counties requirements and compare. But there wasn't a county that we came across that had to extend that far. The quarter mile was exceeding what we did see. So it can be modified, but I think what's probably best is maybe for a review of our neighboring jurisdictions and rural county jurisdictions. So you can
I don't know if I'd waste too much time on rural counties unless they're close to Silicon Valley, because that impact isn't that you can't compare us to Tehama or Plumas or anybody else because they don't have a Silicon Valley choking them out.
Maybe the LA area, similar to maybe Silicon Valley in the LA area.
If they're in proximity to LA getting their life choked out of them too, I think that'd be fair.
Well, also, and to that point, Hollister's kind of considered a bedroom community to the Silicon Valley, so you have to find something that's equal, where you have maybe an LA and an outer community that. But also on the roads, I'm still baffled how you quantify the wear and tear on the roads. I've looked at that, and it's interesting to me because your point is right, that the smaller cars don't do very much impact, but once that road has been breached in a way that the water gets under, it doesn't really matter if it's a car or if a truck, that road is doomed. And so I kind of took a drive out to kind of see, basically after we had this long conversation about road wear, because I was curious. And you can definitely see where water has gotten under some of the roads, and it doesn't matter if it's a car or a truck at that point. Its decline is going to increase exponentially the more it's worn. So I just...
I concur. So was there a question? But I agree with what you said. So.
Well, the point kind of was that we're gonna have more. I think we're expected to have more housing built, and all of that. To me, 80% of those guys got to go to the Silicon Valley for work. So, in that we can. For this, where we have a quarter mile, if we don't get pushback from then we didn't ask for enough. if they're just willing to say, okay, that's fair, I'll accept that. Maybe we didn't ask for enough, just as a person kind of looking in.
I would also concur with that too. So I guess it's up to this commission to direct us, staff, if we want to go back to just the 50 feet per lot and keep it simple as that, or, because you're right, you don't know how much pushback you're going to get until it occurs. We were just trying to look at some other similar scenarios in other jurisdictions and things that were implemented, and that's how we came up with this conclusion. But it's up to this commission here to direct us.
Okay. Commissioner Ringhayden, any other?
I think
It's
those are
not
my
like it's
thoughts
your
for
last
now.
chance. We're going to zip back and forth, and
Yes.
then we're going to hammer away at this thing.
I appreciate it. I'm good for now.
Commissioner Scagliotti?
I think quarter mile is way too short. And there's, if you get down, we'll take Fairview Road as an example. You have Santana Ranch there. Did they put anything towards the Santa Ana Creek Bridge? That's going to have to be widened and made bigger someday. They didn't put a penny towards it, I'll bet. I'm just guessing, assuming, but that's the kind of stuff that's getting away. So if we did make this, when it gets to there, well, then maybe we make a deal. You make the bridge bigger, and this is not going to work. This quarter mile is not going to work for me
Fair enough.
at all.
Chair,
Oh,
I would add this. My understanding is this is setting a baseline as well. If there is an individual project that came before you that you decided to increase it from whatever was set in the code, then you could adjust it as you wish.
Yes, but I'd like to have a more fair starting point in the conversation, because, I mean, our existing code basically for decades, apparently, it never said half, and for decades we've always, just do half. Well, of course they're not going to argue because it saves them money, and then here we are with roads that are just falling apart. So I would rather set a higher baseline, and then if we think that if there's an impact that's greater, we can go to the individual project and talk to them about that. But I don't want to be so lenient that we get bulldozed over for another 4 decades.
I like Mr. Ringhayden's opinion. If they push back, okay, then but if they don't push back,
Maybe you haven't asked for enough.
we haven't asked for enough. And then my other concern is on paragraph B, 100-year flood. We said 500-year at minimum, and it's still 100. How come that wasn't changed?
Correct, because the last meeting, or maybe the last 2 meetings, the storm drainage topic was shelved essentially because we're working with a hydrologist to see what 500-year means versus 100 years for the whole system watershed, and not just thinking about putting, ginormous holes on properties, but it actually affects the watershed. So we're still exploring that, and that will come back. It will, to answer your question.
Well, maybe we'll make it maybe 750 or 1,000-year flood. And the other thing is, I want you to look into what the city's doing. The city is now putting in like wells in those percolation ponds. I heard the other day, and I've seen it happening over there on Santa Ana Road. I'd like that be looked into also, and part of our code. As whatever you just call the city, copy whatever they have, find out what they're doing. But they're putting wells, like little wells where the water will percolate. And they're putting a mesh filter to catch all the oils and stuff. So let's dig into that too and see what's going on.
Okay, we can match.
100 years, this 100 years is not going to work.
Okay, well, the city doesn't even do that, but for the 100-year, but I know what you're talking about with the percolation issues, so.
I'm going to start doing that.
So you'll have that information for when this comes back, because I don't want to have to revisit it. I only have 2 more years.
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you what, the next regularly scheduled planning commission, I'll bring the flood discussion back, the storm drain discussion back, so.
And I'm thinking add a 0 to it. Because I know when I spoke with the gentleman, he's no longer there, but the gentleman from Regional Water Control Board, he said, I encourage you to hold 100% of the water. He said that the state doesn't care about the quantity, they care about the quality. And he said he encourages local jurisdictions to have them hold everything. So I would like to go that route. Commissioner Toledo.
I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I know that how many miles or half a mile is best, but I am gonna listen to my fellow planning commissioners because of their experience. So thank you for listening to us, and I will definitely. I feel that we do need to push it to the max because we haven't done so. So thank you.
Commissioner Way.
Yeah, I find myself in a really unusual position tonight. I feel like I'm normally one of the most conservative with regard to environmental issues and CEQA and so forth, as far as, wanting to hold the developers' feet to the fire and so forth. However, in this one case, I actually feel like the original proposal without limitation, 50 feet, seems excessive. The example that you put out with the 9.4 miles, that seems like it's asking for a court challenge. And while we can certainly defend ourselves in a court challenge, it's expensive and it takes resources from the county that could otherwise be used for other things. I think we need a compromise between no limits and a quarter mile. I do think a quarter mile seems pretty short. I wonder I know that the research that was done was comparing counties and what their limits are. However, did we find any court cases where a county was challenged on something and the court said, yeah, that's way too much?
Not for this. I researched a different project, different court case where literally just the frontage between the subdivision kind of was shaped like a horseshoe. And the city actually required frontage improvements in between the two connections of the subdivision in the middle. And the city actually had to and that was a mile-ish maybe. And the city said, well, you got to, connect this. It's not your frontage, but you need to connect this part of the road and put a sidewalk and curb and gutter. And went to court, and the city ended up reimbursing the developer for that whole stretch in between just that one. It wasn't even a mile, I don't think, because they couldn't prove that there was a nexus, even though the project connected to this main road, and there was, less than a mile in between. Long story short, the city had to pay the developer back.
Yeah,
So
well,
that was just 1 mile. So.
I can see the point of putting in some sort of a limit. I don't think a quarter mile is sufficient by any stretch of the imagination. A mile? I don't know, but more than a quarter, and probably I'd be comfortable with something more than the quarter mile and less than the 50 feet without any limitation whatsoever. So that's just my opinion, for what it's worth.
Okay. Any other? No. I had a question. Now it's my turn. On the resolution, it says, third whereas, urban service areas 5-year limitations for subsequent subdivisions of a parcel. What is the 5-year? I don't recall that one. I'm getting old.
I don't either, actually, on the resolution.
So we didn't change part of the code regarding that? It's page 12 of the packet. It's the third whereas.
I believe it's referring to the requirements of if you had multiple minor subdivisions in an area, then it would be considered a major, and then they would be required to then do the improvements.
Okay, so it's like
of the major.
It's a look back period, but we're not reducing anything, correct? I didn't see anything in the red line that referenced that, so I was curious why it was mentioned in the resolution, but I didn't see it in the ordinance.
Yes, I believe it was under the 4 and fewer lots, page.
Because we certainly don't want to be less restrictive when it comes to housing developers.
Maybe it was in the first, let me find it. Oh, at the bottom, if any further subdivision occurs within it's under page 6, under the last sentence. If any further subdivision occurs within 5 years, then the requirement for improvements would be 23-17-003A1.
Page 19.
Yes, so
Oh.
it reverts back to the major division frontage improvement
Okay.
requirements.
Thank you. Then let's go back to 1 about the 50 feet and the generous quarter of a mile. I think a nice meeting in the middle would be change it to 100 feet and 2.5 miles. So that way, if we get smaller, a 500 acre or 500 unit development, there's a little bump up. I don't think $10,000 or $12,000 a unit's going to kill a developer, especially when they pass it on.
I'd be okay with that.
So 100 feet and 2.5 miles either direction. Is there any discussion from the commission on that one?
I can agree with that. And if there's any bridge in the way, they have to help pay to rebuild the bridge.
I think we have to rely on the engineer to do that. Correct?
Yeah, and well, yes, but you bring up a good point. The planning commission can, make those suggestions as well, and it's, even on bridges. So I'm not sure we'd put it as a baseline, but okay. So back to the original, it's 100 feet of street length, and 2.5 miles in each direction. Is that
Not to
the
exceed
current
2.5
request?
miles.
Yep.
Not to exceed 2.5 miles.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the storm drain, if we don't hear back, I like 100% or 1,000-year flood. If the state says we can make them withhold everything, I don't see why we wouldn't. And if they have to give up a couple of lots, I'm not going to cry for them.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, 100%
Of the rain.
of let's clarify, 100% of the additional runoff generated by the development.
Correct.
Is what we're saying. So I think we're on the same page. So.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The maximum amount allowable. And then the only other thing that mentioned 100-year flood was, it's our packet page 30, 9 of 13 in the small print under storm drainage. It referenced 100-year flood. So if we do change that, that number will also have to get changed.
Okay.
And that's it for that section. That's all I had. So is there a motion with those changes to bring it back? When are we going to bring this back, Ariel? Is it not going to be the regular meeting for August, is it?
Well, does it have to go in 2 steps?
Yeah.
We can bring it back in September. We missed the noticing requirements for
Okay.
August.
So the regular meeting in September, we don't have too many things coming at us?
We should be okay.
Okay. Is there a motion to continue that item with the changes to the regular meeting in September?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now to the next item, 6.1. Discussion of amendments to Title 25, etc.
Good evening, Chair and fellow commissioners, members of the public. So this is a discussion item today to bring forth. This was a combination of multiple meetings with commissioners and staff, and working on, since we had a major comprehensive update of our zoning code back in 2022, just as we've been using the code, pieces that found we needed to modify. Also pieces that we, in looking at our general plan, that we could better implement in our zoning code. And so this is a combination thereof. I am thinking that it might be appropriate to go by title section, so 2501. I kind of give the summary, and then we can have a discussion if that works. Okay.
Yes,
Perfect.
please.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's a lot of stuff to throw at you at the end.
Perfect. I'm glad we're all on the same page tonight. So in 2501, the main pieces that were modified include removing notice of application procedures. It's 2502-001E and section 2502-002D that include additional requirements for public hearing and notice procedures. Section 2501-007A, including boundaries of notification, a statement that a public hearing is not required for administrative use permits, and for all other discretionary entitlements, the time, date, and location of the public hearing. So this was just a little bit clearer language. Then another item that was added was clarifying a 1-year waiting period for reapplication of any application that's been denied by the Board of Supervisors. We previously had it. We removed it. And we also included in there, some language about addressing items that were in the denial. Just found that in practical use, having a little bit of a waiting period before application coming back, and making sure that they are addressing the concerns of why they were denied. So. And then, in addition, appeals, expansion, and non-conforming uses, structures, and sites, added requirements on appeal applications. We expanded on non-conforming uses, structures, and sites exceeding allowable uses. Basically, giving them an opportunity that if they were to exceed, there are some, with changing zoning codes, updated general plans, when we've updated general plans and zoning in the past, we have not necessarily gone in and updated specific properties. And as such, there's been a handful of miscellaneous properties that they end up becoming non-conforming because they don't meet the new requirements. So just allowing an opportunity that if applicant came in, that even though maybe they're non-conforming and they're not maybe meeting the allowable uses, that they could bring that to Planning Commission to be reviewed and determined if what they're asking to do could be consistent. And then, in addition, reviewing authorities for appeals related to those non-conforming uses and structures and sites, and just added to that. Okay, so before I get into 2502, that kind of wraps up. I can also go directly to the code and bring that up as well, if you would like.
We'll do public comment at the end, just so that it's clear. We're not going to do it for each section, I think. I think we'll just do it at the end so it's less confusing. Commissioner Toledo, do you have any comments, questions, concerns? No? Commissioner Way?
Yes, I have a very minor wording issue. 25.01.008 Appeals, Section A. It's added wording asking for or requiring a written statement clarifying the grounds for appeal. I have an issue with the word clarifying. Clarifying normally, in my opinion, means making something clearer. Well, there's nothing to be made clearer because they haven't told us they haven't told the Board of Supervisors what the grounds for appeal is yet. So I would ask that instead of saying clarifying, we either say specifying or indicating. No objection?
No?
Okay.
I like that.
Okay, and
Counsel,
also,
did you?
Oh, sorry.
I would say clearly indicating.
Clearly indicating? Okay. That sounds
Clearly,
We want them to be specific as the challenges that they're raising. So,
clearly
but yeah, I
indicated,
appreciate that
sufficient
correction.
for everybody? Okay, we have nods of the heads.
And then there's a minor glitch in the document. The table of contents, or I guess it's the index, if you look at the entry for 25.01.008, it says error bookmark not defined. And that's all I had for this section. Thank you.
I missed something you caught. That's fantastic. Commissioner Ringhayden,
No, I have nothing for this section. Thank you.
Commissioner Scagliotti.
I have nothing at the moment.
Yeah, okay. Page 69, otherwise known as page 7 of 22, noticing requirements. People always say, oh, we didn't know about it. The 300 feet, is that state law? And if it is, can we exceed it?
We can exceed it, and it is state law.
Okay. Is anybody interested in exceeding that? Because,
Except, sorry, I just want to clarify, except for projects, there are certain projects that then require further noticing, and I believe it's 1,000 feet, so, and that's also specified.
that's actually the number I was thinking of. Because 300 feet is in the county, in the rural county, you're not going to be, you notify one person and then you have a neighbor a mile down the road is like, what happened? So is there a consensus to change that number to 1,000?
I agree.
Okay.
What about changing it to 1,000 and including a requirement that all neighboring lots be notified regardless of distance?
All adjacent lots?
All adjacent lots.
Is that something we can do, Sean? It's going to cost a little more.
I'm not sure how the wording works, but wouldn't the neighboring properties include the 300 feet? Is it from the border of the property, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. If it's from the border,
I don't think
that's
it's from the
fine.
residence
If
itself.
it's from the center, then it might
No.
not, but-
Okay. It's from the
Okay, then
property
that's
line.
I
fine.
believe it's from the border.
Then
Okay.
that's fine.
Property lines, correct.
1,000 feet. Okay. That's all I had. Fantastic.
Perfect. So I did add this one slide in. It is not in your packet. I just wanted to actually go through the 2502 and explain in a little bit more detail the removal. So essentially, there had been a court case prior to our 2022 adoption that basically made the procedures that had been done to adopt our crowing fowl permits code section had gone to the courts, and basically they had said that it was invalid. We didn't follow proper procedures. They needed to go back and bring it back to Planning Commission and the board for approval. That was never done, and then it was not brought to staff's attention from council's office back when we were doing the updates in 2022. It was then brought to our attention as we were working on these updates, and in the discussion, it was found that this code, by adoption of the 2022, and in fact, corrected that. However, if you wanted to remove it, we could remove it. Staff wouldn't recommend necessarily removing it. Instead, staff would recommend, because it has been a particular item from the board of interest, that we actually take a look at it and amend it. And some of the things that staff the main concern coming from the board is cockfighting. There is, requirements. It's not lawful. You're not lawfully allowed to do that. And we checked with code enforcement. There hasn't been any code cases necessarily to it, but in looking at our code, some of the things we could do to just update it would add a few more definitions, such as rooster keeping operation, poultry hobbyist, rooster. We could look at things as facility standards. So where, roosters are, or crowing fowl are kept, and the facilities, and sanitation, inspection protocols, we definitely think that adding just more outline procedures of the enforcement and the process. And then, so extending past roosters, so we could either really keep it a rooster ordinance, or we could make sure that it includes other fowl and be specific with it. The ordinance, even though it's called crowing fowl, it really is just for roosters if you read into it. So that's kind of a determination. If we were to keep it just roosters, then staff would recommend that we retitle it so it's a little bit more clear what the ordinance is.
Okay. Commissioner Toledo? Commissioner Wade?
Would peacocks be considered crowing fowl?
If we included that into the ordinance, we could define peacocks as that.
Yeah, I mean, they can be extremely noisy, and if you've got a neighbor that's keeping 20 peacocks, you may have a problem, but, okay, thanks.
Commissioner Scagliotti?
Yes, I think we should visit that. And yes, I think we should visit that and make it for roosters. Isn't that what you kind of explained?
Okay.
Specify those for roosters.
Roosters.
We could also add just another option. We could specify a roosters section, and then we could also maybe specify out other fowl, and maybe be a little bit more restrictive on our noisier friends, and a little bit.
Oh, of course, we already have a noise ordinance, so maybe it's not an issue. Maybe the peacocks are already taken care of by that.
It actually comes up under code enforcement cases, and we don't have, I think, enough in here. If they have less roosters than would require a permit, then there isn't really specification of what we can do to basically enforce enough of that issue. And so maybe adding a little bit more of, nuisance and.
Yeah.
Well, before I go back to Commissioner Scagliotti, I will say we're in Ag County, so it makes me a little nervous that we're going to start going after people's animals, unless it's for fighting cocks. Moving to a rural county and then demanding that everything change doesn't work for me. So we have to be very cautious with what we do here.
Yeah, sorry, specifying in residential districts.
Okay.
That's more of the complaints and issues, not our ag districts necessarily, but our residential districts.
So the 5 acres and under.
So that would include then our agricultural productive. So we could look at lot acreage.
I think, yeah.
Okay.
It's a slippery slope.
Well, keep it. If you have an acre, you don't have a rooster, because then you have and then you have neighbors 100 feet away.
Yeah, I don't want to bother the person who has a rooster and 4 or 5 hens.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We have to craft it if we're
gonna
gonna
watch it. You got to word it toward the person raising the fighting roosters.
Yeah.
At 4 a.m. when you hear the cacophony of roosters. It's not for laying eggs.
Yeah, I believe it's 6 right now, or more require a permit. So if it's under, if someone has a rooster, then it's not gonna require.
So we can find an ordinance that goes after specifically maybe fighting cocks and kind of craft it more toward that, as opposed to somebody that has a flock of 100 hens. And of course, you're going to have 5 roosters for 100 hens. So we just have to make sure we're not going after egg producers.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
What about a regular person?
Because I don't have 5 roosters, but I could if I want. Okay. Anything else, Commissioner Scagliotti?
No.
Commissioner, did I already go to Benny? Did I go to you?
I would just I want to just reiterate what you said, which is we come to an ag community. It's pretty, one of the things that's beautiful about an ag community is having the ability to have laying hens. If we want to target people who are using these roosters for cockfighting, I think we should absolutely do that. And if there's any language you could put in there that specifically targets that industry, by all means. But we do live in an ag community, so.
Anything else, sir? No?
I'm sorry?
You're good?
We're good.
Okay. Then I'm going to go to page 103, otherwise known as 19 of 32, paragraph 7. It's all starts out in red. The county may limit the number of temporary events, et cetera, et cetera. Who's the county? Who represents the county in that word? Is that code enforcement? Is that the director? Is that?
It would be staff acting on
So
this.
if somebody gets basically turned in to code enforcement
Yes.
would determine. Okay. Just wanted clarification on that. That is all I had, but I can't wait to, I didn't look at Crow and Fowl because I didn't understand why this was disappearing. So we'll have to bring that back and work on it in the meantime, I suppose. So was that it for that section? Commissioner Way, you had another?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to go back to Commissioner Ringhayden's comment. It is true in the aggregate that we live in an agricultural community. It is not true that everyone in the county lives in an agricultural setting. So there are limits that can and should be placed on the residential areas of the unincorporated parts of the county, in my opinion, just for what it's worth. The other thing that I had that wasn't Crow and Fowl related was, and I know we talked about this, and forgive me because I'm not remembering the gist of the discussion, but we've doubled the number of square feet required before you are exempt, or I'm not saying it right, but we've doubled the square footage requirements for the exemptions for non-residential, commercial, office, and institutional structures across the board. And I remember being in the meeting where we did that. And can somebody refresh my memory as to, we were trying to streamline?
It's my next slide.
What page?
I kind of broke up 2502, but I can go
sorry.
through
Okay.
some of that.
All right, fair enough.
Like,
What's the page, Rich?
Oh, it's our page number 87.
87, thank you.
Yep, table 25.02-A.
Okay, please proceed.
okay, so you go to page 87. Thank you, Commissioner Way. We basically expanded the review thresholds for zoning clearances, minor development plan reviews, and major plan development reviews for non-residential, commercial, office, and institutional structures as follows. So just like Commissioner Way stated, you know, we went from 2,500 or 2,500 to 5,000 square feet with the limitation around number of people and vehicle trips. And then we increased the minor development plan review to 5,000 to 10,000 and major development plan review to above 10,000. So both minor development plan reviews or major development plan reviews are essentially equivalent to administrative use permit or a conditional use permit, which would come to the Planning Commission. The zoning clearance is essentially that which could be exempt from requiring an additional planning permit, but would still go through the building permit process. One of the biggest things that's been kind of directed at staff through the board, through the Planning Commission, through the Economic Development Committee was what can we do to streamline our agritourism, some of our commercial, to the extent feasible. So staff went and did a good amount of research looking into CEQA and exemptions and requirements, and to what extent could we have things be permitted and just proceed to the building permit stage. And so that essentially saves an applicant costs and time And it especially focused on, because one of the main concerns that came out of the Economic Development Committee is local business. How can we promote local business, those that are just starting up, those that are just trying to get on their feet, and then when they grow, then they would, come back and come through the Planning Commission process. And so this is where we had gotten to on that. And part of the exemptions too is with CEQA, it's not just about square footage. You have to look at the number of people, like how many people, because some businesses wouldn't necessarily have too many people. It's just, building someone, doing an activity. Others are, just like when you're driving 25 and you stop off at, Piscene's, that little store. So that's the kind of business that we're trying to look at how we can streamline and promote here.
Okay, so this doesn't cause a project that would have otherwise required a CEQA study to suddenly be exempt from that.
Correct. So
Okay.
once you get in above zoning clearance, it's requiring to at least have an administrative use permit. We're looking at CEQA and what impacts would be and what level of CEQA
Sure.
documentation would be required.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions from the commission? Okay, thank you.
In addition, and this kind of extends from 2502 through 2503, is again with that same hat of how can we support local business and looking at some of our uses. We went through our tables and exceeding, what would require a conditional use permit or what could be administrative or what could be permitted. And then we added, if, depending on the scale of that. So agricultural zones, again, looking at, and this all just to bring it back to the general plan. Our general plan really looks at how you can be versatile on ag properties, how we can bring agritourism. And so this was, again, just taking a fresh set of eyes and looking at some of those. So bed and breakfast establishments, hotels and motels, brewery, distillery, wineries. It may include tasting room. We found that there was applications that just wanted to do a tasting room. They weren't necessarily growing or on site, but they just wanted to open up something like that. Gas stations, charging stations. Charging stations, there is so many grants that the county has been applying for and continuing. We didn't receive some that we applied for last year, but there is a lot of money that's coming in, and so really looking at where do those go or can go. Mini marts, sale of agricultural products, including track and feed supplies. That's come through our office as being, someone wants to, open something like that up, and, what do they need? How can it, be streamlined? We had specified in the past agricultural products in San Benito County compared to outside San Benito County. We just want, again, to promote what's our economy. Our economy is agriculture, so let's not get so specific. Commercial outdoor recreational uses, not limited to RV parks, commercial sports shooting, hunting clubs, riding clubs, golf courses. And then we had previously brought forth the outdoor camping. So you won't see that that's redlined because that code's already been adopted. And residential zones, we 2503D, commercial kennels, hobby kennels, short-term rentals. We only had hobby kennels code in there. We didn't have any code related to commercial kennels, and we felt that we've had people come come in that have been interested. And so looking at, okay, what requirements should we have in there? Or where can these go? Brewery, distillery, winery in our commercial zones. Again, we have limited commercial areas, but we hadn't really defined adding some of those things. So, just expanding on it. Farm equipment sales with accessory repairs and services. Again, that is consistently, needed here. It comes up frequently with different projects or people coming through. The sale of fruit and vegetables on the roadside stand, just making it easier, again, but with limitations on, size. If you refer back to our development standards, indoor shooting range, pet shop, short-term rentals, and then in our industrial zones, also allowing brewery, distillery, winery, may include tasting room, outdoor shooting range. And again, adding the winery, brewery, distillery, that was just, again, looking at our economy, how some interest that we've seen, and, adding places where we could support that. And then, again, several uses prohibited or omitted in some zones had been added. So gas stations, alternative fuel stations, charging station, mini marts added to agricultural zones. Drive-through restaurants and eating and drinking establishments, including nightclubs, added to neighborhood commercial zones, subject to CUP. Indoor shooting range added to commercial, light industrial, and heavy industrial zones, subject to a CUP. And I just want to inform the commission, I did reach out to our sheriff. I don't see him on tonight, but he said he reviewed it and he didn't have any comments to the ordinance provided, but we're happy to revise anything you see. Construction, demolition materials, sorting and management, energy and gas recovery, recycling, buyback, salvage, repair, and restoration of all household goods or outdoor operations, landfills, wood and green waste, grindings, household hazardous waste collections, processing, transportation, indoor and outdoors, supporting operation facilities such as office equipment, materials, indoors, added to the public quasi-public zone, subject to a CUP. So just spelling out all the different kind of recycling operations you could have in the county and where you can have them. That wraps up that section.
Commissioner Way?
This is for input on 2503?
Yes.
Okay, great. Table 25.03-B, in our packet, page number 123, at the very bottom, changes the hotel motel from conditional use permit required to permitted across the board, including on agricultural rangeland and agricultural productive. I have no problem with that change on rural and rural transition. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with permitting just administrative permit, hotel or motel on agricultural rangeland or agricultural productive. Is there a sense of the commission on that? Does anybody else feel?
My thought was like the wine trail area or Pinnacles. I mean, that's all ag. And if we want people to go out there as tourists, you kind of have to have the hotel, motel kind of in the area as opposed to here by the airport.
Well, sure, but wouldn't you want to have the opportunity to look at that and approve it as a commission?
Isn't there still design review?
So what we put in there was the buffer. If it exceeds the 5,000 square feet or 100 people, so then it would bump up to needing a use.
Well, almost any hotel or motel was going to exceed 5,000 feet.
Yes, this was kind of looking at, someone starting up that maybe they're adding a room or two to their business.
Sure.
They have a wedding venue that they are having people come out to the winery and bride and groom can stay there type.
Okay, as long as it's subject to the square footage thing, and then it comes back to us, that I'm fine.
I mean, I'd love to bump that up, but I think we have to do more work to get that number bumped up.
Yeah.
Because
And-
5,000 square feet isn't much.
Yeah. And then on our page 125, similarly, we're allowing mini marts on agricultural rangeland and agricultural productive. And I was wondering about that. But again, that's the same, I think that's covered by the same issue.
Yes.
Sale of agricultural products. This is the roadside stand business. There's an example. There's a photograph, and forgive me because I don't have the page marked, but towards the back of our packet, there's a photograph of an example of a roadside stand. And that's a roadside stand to me. I wonder, would you, and I know this is not in our county, but I'm sure you're familiar with it, not counting the other businesses that are on the property, the hotel, motel, the coffee shop, et cetera, just looking at the portion of Casa de Fruta that constitutes the sale of fruits and foods, would you consider that to be a roadside stand?
I'm thinking about the building, and I think it's been a little while since I've been out there. I think that would exceed both the square footage and number of people kind of coming into it, so it would require a use permit.
Okay.
So one of the things too is, to really put in there, how much, what's the limitations be built. And most single family residences going out are at least, around 3,000 square feet.
Right.
So you're not looking at that much.
So as long as everything is subject to that, then that's fine. Let me just see if my next flag is in this section or not. It might not be. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it is. Yeah, well, again, that's covered by what you're already saying. On our page 133, table 25.03B, commercial kennels, including without limitation, kennels for hybrid animals. Hybrid animals. I saw an example of a hybrid animal being a mule. I don't understand why we're specifying, why we're making it, calling out that it's okay to keep hybrid animals in a kennel.
Is that like a liger? A lion and a tiger? What is it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm puzzled as to why we would codify that.
We don't need to necessarily codify, but we just were, there's some, interesting cats that you can have for sale now. And so just adding language to be more open.
More
but it's not-
permissive.
Yeah, but it's not necessary.
Can I just say, if they're legal in California, I think.
Yep,
Yeah.
go
Okay,
for it.
just the verbiage, yeah.
Because there's not a lot of things that are legal in this great state.
Right.
Can't have a ferret and God knows what else.
Yeah. Okay,
Commissioner
and I think
Way?
my next flag is not until 25.08, so
Okay.
I will shut up for a while.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Scagliotti?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Toledo?
Mine has to do, I have a lot of questions in the page 82 and 86, the 25.08 for the shooting. Oh, are we okay? I'm not yet.
Not yet. Commissioner Ringhayden?
Not anything at this time.
Okay. I have one on page 172, otherwise known as 56 of 64. It is grazing, and under quasi-public, it says A or C. Shouldn't that be one or the other?
Oh,
And I was thinking A, because it's A in the Resource Recovery Park.
yes, I apologize. That was a typo. And I believe it's supposed to be A.
Yes, please.
Okay.
And that was all I had for the tables. Is there anything else before we skip to the next section, commissioners? Seeing none, please proceed.
Great. So 2507 General Development and Design Standards. So one of the things we specified, it just needed actually just clarification. We had previously increased the floor area for accessory structures from 1,000 to 2,500 square feet in the last code section, but we had missed this one particular line under 2507-007.6, and it's still set at 1,000. So we just corrected that. So it's all the same. And it excludes when it's accessory dwelling units or agricultural buildings, as those have separate square footage standards. We just made reference on requirements for ADA parking under 2507-010C. We permanent outdoor storage limit to a maximum of 200 square feet. Section 2507-015.C3. We included standards for height, screening, and fire requirements for outdoor storage. So just really kind of adding to that's required. We've had some different code cases related to just blight or storage on property. So this was a little bit trying to look at that. And some of this actually came, thoughts on this part of the code development actually came from our code enforcement officer. And then added standards for motor vehicle repair and storage in residential area. This also came through code enforcement as well. So just helping add code that we can then use to regulate different areas. So that's section 2507-015E. Okay, so any comments for 2507?
Commissioner Ringhayden?
No, I don't.
Commissioner Toledo? Commissioner Way?
Nothing on this section, thank you.
You feeling good? Commissioner Scagliotti?
No.
Okay, no, I don't have anything either. It looks great. You didn't get any feedback from anybody, did you, about the motor vehicle repair and storage?
No, I haven't had like necessarily any public comment, and we don't have any one online.
Okay.
And again, this was to help better address code cases.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So ADUs, we added modular homes to ADU design standards. It is allowed, but just calling that out under 2508-002. We added up to 2 ADUs allowed per lot. Again, it is subject to water and septic availability. If there isn't that availability, then they will not be able to build 2. But this kind of looks at, we have a lot of, just large property owner parcels, and they have maybe different ranch hands. So this just looks at, kind of facilitating, management of land where appropriate. We also added requirements for ADUs with an attached garage, and then requirements for JADUs. And I will, in addition, under 2508, mobile home and recreational vehicles, we stipulate that recreational vehicles are alternative housing types, uses for temporary housing, and are not considered mobile homes. We added requirements for recreational vehicles as temporary housing. We really dived into adding code for pet shops and commercial kennels, and some revisions to our hobby kennels. We just had hobby kennels before, so this added. And we just, looked at age of puppies and kittens, operation, structural requirements, indoor commercial kennels and hobby kennels, outdoor commercial kennels and hobby kennels, dog enclosures, cat enclosure, maintenance requirements. We did actually have an application come through, and so it would be useful that if more came through, we had more code to be able to use when looking at those types of applications. And it also helps when addressing, I'm sure you guys saw the news article about all of cats and dogs and unsuitable living conditions. So it just, again, helps us have backing for regulation. And animal keeping and number of small farm animals, like small livestock and dogs and cats. So just standards for commercial stables, to include regulations for minimum lot size, environmental impacts, erosion control, waste management. We have had some code cases kind of come through on, the number of large animals to a property. And so that was, why we looked at adding some more specification. Renewable energy facilities, we reduced the maximum height requirement for ground-mounted solar energy systems from 20 feet to 15 feet. Actually, our staff member, Victor, did a good amount of research and really looking at our general plan and aesthetics and visual impacts. We have multiple different policies in there about making sure that we're not intrusive on those things. So that was why we looked at reducing the feet. Solar is going to be coming more. There's just going to be more projects coming through as they want to expand renewable energy, and so thinking about how to accommodate that push, while also looking at preserving our area and our community. Movable tiny homes. We just added did you want me to go back?
No, that's fantastic.
Okay. Just defined what that movable tiny home is. It's allowed as a primary residence or ADU, as standards for movable tiny homes. Reference other applicable state and federal codes, added inspection requirements, and updated fire inspection requirements. So, again, just there's a lot of state push on, promoting housing for all peoples. And so, tiny homes has definitely been coming about as a solution potentially for that. And so making sure that we have code for when those types of applications come in. Short-term rentals, we just added a few more requirements under short-term rentals: intent, applicability, zoning clearance, business license required, permitted location, zoning clearance requirements, short-term rental regulations. And then the commercial sports shooting and indoor shooting ranges. We had originally been looking at outdoor shooting ranges as our code update, and I actually had a supervisor reach out to make sure that we not only include outdoor shooting ranges, but potentially indoor shooting ranges if they wanted to come in as well. And so you'll see that from our time of having our meetings to what you see before you, looked at having standards for both. Okay, and that wraps up. And I know in this section there's going to be a lot of comments. So should we? Yep. I could start from the beginning.
Yes, we'll just go back to the beginning. Commissioner Scagliotti, any comments, questions?
I'll wait because mine's on the shooting, so go back to the
Okay.
stuff.
Commissioner Way.
Yeah, just a couple of minor things, relatively minor things. One is a funny. On section 25.08.006, section H, recreational vehicles, the preamble, this is on page 296 of our packet. I know what's intended here. I know what's meant, but the way it's worded, it could be misinterpreted badly. Recreational vehicles must be parked within 100 feet of a residence. Whose residence? Right? You could argue that, well, I've parked it within 100 feet of a residence, so I'm cleared. So I think we need to add some words in there indicating that it needs to be the residence associated with the recreational vehicle. 25.08.012, pet shops. On our page 305, I believe there's a typo. Under A1D, Commercial kennel is defined as, well, we're just reading through A, B, C. The keeping of 5 or more adult dogs, 12 or more puppies, 9 or more adult cats, 12 or fewer kittens. I think it's supposed to be 12 or more kittens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I just had a question. Well, actually, more than a question. Under 25.08.012, pet shops, kennels, etc., Section D, number 2, the operator and/or on-duty manager shall post on a daily basis the name of each on-duty manager in a conspicuous place. I would like them to post not only the name, but also the contact info, either a phone number or some other way to get in touch with them. I think just the name is not sufficient. And then the whole Section D, which is great, by the way. I mean, I like to see this here, and E and F and G and H and so forth. All of this is new, and I don't know enough about kennels and requirements for keeping cats and dogs and so forth. I mean, other than obviously as pets. Is this out of whole cloth, or did we base this on some other county, or?
We did. We pulled from other counties and looked at them. We did check state requirements. There wasn't actually much specification there. So we just kind of pulled from other counties.
Okay, then I'll rely on your research then on that regard, because like I said, I'm not that familiar with what's reasonable here. That might be all I had for 2508. Let me just quickly look at where my next flag is.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
we'll
no,
be
it's not.
bouncing around.
It's not quite enough, not quite all. Well, we just talked about the 25 feet versus 15 feet. Maximum height allowed in the base zone, whichever is less. Okay, so this is specifically for ground-mounted solar energy systems. Okay, never mind that. My question is moot. And then we have, I think now we're out of this section. One moment. No, not quite. Commercial sports shooting, operational requirements, our page 353 requires $1 million of liability insurance. Certainly we should require some liability insurance. Is that enough?
It's a standard.
I don't know. It
it's
is
a standard amount.
All right. Okay, then, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Toledo.
I want to thank you for researching on the animals. I think in general, the beginning of starting a business like that is with good intent, and then somehow they just lack supervision. So would code enforcement be there to oversee, or how? I know, because I'm not sure how that works, because, we don't want this to happen, or the last case that happened here in San Benito County to happen again. So
It's actually, there are some duties that are part of the animal control officer. So if a complaint came in, we would work in unison with the animal control
okay, so it'd be only by a case of a complaint, not really going in by.
Like annual inspections, you're saying,
Right.
or biannual inspections?
We do have annual inspections as part of the conditional use permit requirements.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all.
Commissioner Ringhaden?
And I just have a question on the enforcement for all this. Is that done by animal control?
When it turns into a code case, animal control is involved on regulating this, because they have they've kind of been noted with some of those authorities in our code. One of the things we've been actually going through is reviewing all of our existing hobby kennels, seeing which are even still active, and going to go through and schedule inspections. So that's like an internal staff thing that we've been working on doing as well. But any new application that came through would have to adhere to this code. So,
Okay. I just, because I didn't know who would enforce this. Would it be code enforcement or would it be the animal?
we would schedule with animal control like inspections. And then similarly, if a code case came in, we would work with animal control officer to look at that case. So it's kind of actually in unison where it's both.
But it's more the wheelhouse of animal control if it's an animal issue, I would think. Robin probably doesn't have the training to deal with,
And
or
she's
the
got enough
facilities
do,
to
I'm
seize
sure.
all the animals. Yeah, it'd have to be animal control takes the lead.
Yes.
Okay.
But the applications come through us, and so we would help with kind of scheduling, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Scagliotti.
Yes, I'm going to the shooting. My first question is size limitation. No more than 10% of the subject's parcel may be used for sports shooting facilities, including all associated facilities such as parking center. That seems like too small of a number, 10%.
We can definitely modify that. We looked at a few codes, but there's we're not stuck to that.
Well, that's probably at a 40-acre parcel because that's the minimum that we put in there. So we could also adjust the 40 acres if that's too large and then adjust that percentage accordingly.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, if it is a 40-acre parcel, 10%, that's still too small. It's only 4 acres. If you want to have an outdoor shooting range.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we have a percentage requirement in there.
I think it should be taken out completely. Strike it completely.
It seems odd.
Okay.
What do you think, Rich? Strike it completely.
I would strike it personally.
Works.
It works for me.
Second that.
Commissioner Ringhayden, Commissioner Toledo, strike it.
Yes, strike it. But are we talking about the shooting range now then? Because I was going to wait towards the end.
Yes.
Yeah, that's part of this discussion.
353.
Well, if, when he's done,
We'll
I
come
can
back.
speak.
Yep.
Okay, then operational requirements. Okay. Damage to property of $1 million provided, however, increased limit liabilities may be required by the director. Who's the director?
Abraham.
Director of Planning and Building.
Okay. Well,
The 1 million is the
oh no, the $1 million, I'm good
yeah,
with
is
that.
the general.
I'm just saying, what if the person doesn't like the I just got a person, there could be a conflict there. That's what I was looking at for the director.
So we have in our under 2502, we have like the reviewing authorities. So there's the director level reviewing authorities, and there's the planning commission reviewing authorities, and there's the board, authorities. And so this is just trying to call out and specify who would be the initial authority. Again, if a director came in and was looking at it and said, you know what, on director's decision, you need more than $1 million liability, they could easily appeal it and come to planning commission, and we would process that.
Okay, and then I'm not sure if I'm reading this right, but on page 354, B, length. The length of the range must be sufficiently great that the shooters shouldn't be greater? Or am I reading this wrong?
Page
354,
was it 80,
2508, that's
81?
B.
I actually think that's correct.
Is that correct?
Grammatically, yeah.
Okay.
The use of the word great there is kind of odd. Maybe large or long. Well, the length should be sufficiently long. That doesn't sound right either. But yeah, I get what's being stated. Maybe our council can offer.
It's 35 feet too short. That's what what I was thinking about. The 35 feet.
Yeah, nothing springs to mind yeah.
Sorry, page 82 of 86?
No, 354 on our
That's the
page.
full sentence?
On our page is 354.
83 of 8, thank you.
Which section? Which?
Page 354, 2508. .033.
Flank the range is sufficiently great that the shooters will never be closer than 35 feet to the bullet trap.
That seems too, that doesn't seem like,
35 feet, oh, I guess for pistol, but I mean, why would you bother at 35 feet?
I guess that's okay. I'm trying to think how far it is of Markley's to the back of the range.
Into a shooting range, a handgun, I think is
I mean,
it's pretty close.
So
It's to the bullet trap.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say the length of the range must be sufficient such that the shooters will never be closer than 35 feet to the building.
I
to
like
the
that
bullet trap.
rewording without regard to whether we're still discussing whether the 35 number is correct. I like the introduction of the sentence that you just proposed.
Cool.
We good with changing that language so it's more clear?
Yes.
to what, can you recite the?
Sean, could you repeat that again?
So, yeah, it's under length, and it would say the length of the range must be sufficient such that the shooters will never be closer than 35 feet.
And we can still argue about the 35.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
okay. Commissioner Scagliotti?
I'm trying to visualize in my head when I go to the shooting ranges how close we are. Yeah, that should be. Where did you get the 35 feet, Ariel?
We pulled it from another code, but we're not to that. And you know what? I'm just gonna do something for you guys.
Magic show?
So probably like length from.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, so from here, from Robert Gibson to the back of the wall, about 35 feet.
That's not far enough. It should be 50 feet. I'd make
Okay.
it further.
So I have a
That's
question
too
though.
close.
You're talking about an actual building structure or just like a
From where you-
cover up?
From where you stand to where you shoot to the back
where?
of the wall where the
Yeah.
bullet trap is at.
So
It could be
let's
50
say
feet.
Robert Gibson has a gun, and this is fun. And he has a target at the back of that wall, the maximum capacity right there. So
Right.
he's trying to aim at, so that's about 35 feet. So he's shooting from this location, or if you think it should be closer, or if you think it should be further.
Well, can I emphasize,
Commissioner Toledo.
I've been to classes where you shoot 5 feet away from the target. So are we mandating that this shooting range should be 35 feet? The target should be that from
Correct.
the target?
That would
No,
be-
that's the bullet trap in the back. I'm saying you have to be 35 feet away from the bullet trap. I'm assuming that's because
So
you don't want particles.
Can you define bullet trap? You mean the berm or the
berm.
backstop? Okay, sorry, you're using different lingo, so I just want to make sure, the back,
I think it should be 50.
okay.
Should we add language into here to be more specific?
So we need a
Because it
longer
sounds like
building?
You
So
have
50 feet?
additional knowledge we could,
I don't want to make it difficult for the general public, because some people just don't have the different language, but I was just trying to understand my fellow planning commissioner where Chair was talking about. So if that's, I have a problem putting a limit that the person has to be 50 feet away from the target or the
Not the
berm.
target.
It's not the target.
Not the target.
So
Oh,
that's
the
the-
Not the target.
backstop.
So just to be clear, if you go to a shooting range, so if I understand this correctly, the target typically, or can be for a handgun shooting range, 25, 15, and 7 yards. When you get, for a concealed carry, you will do the 7 yards that start there. But the backstop for that target is way further beyond, and I think that's where you're.
Well, not many cases. It depends on the shooting range. I've seen it 5 feet away from your target, 10 feet away, not.
But the backstop for the bullet has to be beyond that, because they have to have the ability for that to absorb and not ricochet back. And I think that if you look at and you Google, they'll tell you that, yeah, you could typically have a target within 7 yards for a handgun.
Indoor. This is referencing indoor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair, for referencing indoor. I'm sorry, I'm thinking outdoor.
okay,
Anyway, I was just trying to clarify if that helps.
It does help.
So back to Commissioner Scagliotti, and
should
then
we
we'll.
use backstop?
Well, you did in the beginning. That's what I read.
Okay.
Use right here, number 4 of indoor shooting range. Under 4, you used backstops and berms. So I was just going by what you guys wrote already.
We can carry the language through.
35 feet is only 10 yards, 10 and a half yards,
Yeah.
roughly, 10 and 3/4 yards. Well, 10 and 3/4 yards is right there. So what I'm trying to say is the backstop, if you're at a shooting range and you're standing here shooting, the backstop should be at least minimum of 50 feet away from you. Doesn't matter where the targets are in between, because those move.
Yeah.
But the backstop where you catch the bullet should be a minimum of 50 feet.
Yeah, I have, unsurprisingly, I guess, have no experience in this. However, I will definitely defer to the people who do. And if somebody's arguing that for safety, this number needs to be higher, I'm not going to say, oh, no. So, yes, I'll go on with that for sure.
Think about it, Commissioner Toledo. I mean, you sit there and you shoot the target at 7, 10, and 15.
Right.
Well, I've been at shooting ranges where I'm shooting the target at 25 yards.
Right. I understand now. Indoor is completely different from outdoor.
So a minimum of 50 feet from the base of the shooter to the backstop.
Do we have a consensus on that number, 50 feet, along with the language that Sean?
I'm okay with
I'd just like to ask the question then, for the indoor ranges, what did the police department use as a standard for their backstop? Maybe we should find that out.
Well, we have one here. Just ask them.
Yeah,
They'll tell you.
it'd be worth asking. Just to get some more.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I did some lighting for the San Jose Police Department, and I was shocked at how close the backstop was.
Yeah, they are close. And I'm not scared to be in an indoor with a professional, right? But I'm not sure. I would have to visually see the 50
And I
feet.
would say I'm not sure either.
I'm just thinking that number is too close.
We could see what,
Yeah, even if the police ranges end up using a shorter number, that could be because they're, professional and they're under closer supervision and so forth. So I don't, if it comes back and the police say, well, we use 35, we still might want to say 50.
Can you guess? Just like
no. I mean, I just remember the rifle range. Could you just call Markley's and whatever indoor shooting ranges are left in California, there can't be too many left,
Yep,
and see what their distances are?
Yeah, Markley's in Watsonville. Use that number. Whatever their shooting is to their backstop, that's the number we
Because
use.
we don't want a huge number where they have to buy a warehouse to.
Yeah.
And if they give you attitude, give them attitude back. They're not very friendly.
Anything else?
Oh,
Commissioner Scaglione?
I'm done.
Back to Commissioner Toledo, and then I'll do a final round, and then I'll take a whack at things.
Anything else on the indoor? Yes.
I do, but I'm going to go through all
Oh,
mine at
I
once.
see. Okay. I will be emphasizing on the outdoor. Let me go back to my notes here. So for the outdoor section, I was a little concerned at first for the lot size shall be 40 acres, minimum of 40 acres. Now that's considering, now that I visualize it and think that we have parking, restrooms, and other factors, because it's a business, I'm okay with the 40 acres. But can we possibly add verbiage in there that may stay something per applicant or per lot location, depending on the situation? I kind of want to be flexible, right? I don't want to have like set in stone 40 acres, but you could get a good lot, let's say if you have the backdrop of a mountain or a hilltop, and you have 30 acres behind you.
But there's no approval process. That's
There's
what we
no-
have to make this code the way we want it, because there's nobody that basically goes and says, oh, well, no, this specific property, you can't do this.
Right.
That's the problem, that it's not like a CUP.
Okay,
Because
just asking.
we lack control, so we have to try to write the ordinance to meet everybody's needs, and we're not going to, because it's impossible.
Okay, no, I understand. So I'm comfortable with it now. And I believe everything else, the insurance is okay. And I think that's about it.
Okay, back. Any other commissioners before I go have any comments, questions, concerns?
I just have
on
a
08.
question maybe you could answer. Where did we come up with the, because I don't know, and I'm naive to this. Where did we come up to the 40 acres of lot size? How did that?
We just had a discussion about noise and safety, and you don't want somebody on 5 acres necessarily opening up a shooting range because you're just going to upset your neighbor. Plus, there's probably safety issues. So, in trying to think, and the weird thing is, I guess maybe it's statewide, I always thought that there were squares. Everything was squares. And if you actually look at, it's just a mess. I don't know what people did 100 years ago, but it's a train wreck. So coming to 40 acres, you're hoping that there's a safe area where people can do it. If you go smaller, and since we don't have control, it's not like it's a permitted process where we actually go and check the site and be, so this is kind of a safety net.
And I think that's good. The reason I ask is a bullet will travel 40 acres, no problem.
That's, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, rifles will go for a little distance.
Yep.
Can I add one more thing? I completely forgot.
Commissioner Toledo.
A safety, something to have in the shooting range, like proper, obviously we have this range safety officer, and that person should have some training on how to, if someone gets shot and is wounded by somebody. So anywho, I didn't see any verbiage on here in regards to having a first aid kit for
Trauma?
a trauma kit. Yes. That's what thank you. I was trying to remember. So having the proper knowledge, or not even knowledge, just the safety kit there, so we can get.
Yeah, I don't think we can mandate that they actually do anything with it because then they're going to get sued but at least we can request that it be there.
Yeah, a Band-Aid, at least it's there, right? Something that's there.
Their friends and family can attend to them and not necessarily the owner of the range. Commissioner Scagliotti, did you have?
One quick question. I don't see where there should be a safety range officer in here anywhere.
It was mentioned.
It's number two under I. So yeah, operation requirements. It's page 354. The very top one, too.
Yeah, so
Okay.
someone,
Is that required?
Yeah.
I mean, by California law?
Yes,
We're putting it under our ordinance, so it will be required.
Yeah.
yes.
We do.
It's required by state law.
By state law.
If you go up to Milpitas, there's 5 of them there. And if you don't do exactly what they tell you, you are asked to leave.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Okay.
I want to make sure it was there.
Yep.
Commissioner Toledo, anything
That's
else?
it. Thank you. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Anyone else before I go? We're good? Okay. So I want to go back to page 280, and I've been harping on this for probably 6 years regarding ADUs and the impact fees. And I would like to have a discussion about capping the impact fees at 10% of the home that's already on the lot. I mean, you build 1,000, 1,200 square foot ADU with construction costs, you're looking at over 200,000. And then we're going to add another 20, 30,000 of impact fees. We're trying to encourage smaller units. We're trying to bring rentals into the market. We're trying to stop what's happening with the pressure from Silicon Valley. Tiny homes, mobile homes, ADUs, I think and apartments and that kind of thing are the only thing that's going to save us. We cannot build market rate homes to save our souls. And I would like to use this as a method of encouragement by saying it's just 10%. Because San Benito County Water District, if you're getting water through Blue Valve, they're going to come up with a $12,500 per unit water hookup fee. That's a lot of money. And if you're putting in a 1,200 or 1,000 square foot ADU, I mean, that just adds to the cost. And I don't think it's necessary. So I would like to have a discussion about making it 10%, and then the board can do what it wants since it's their baby. It's a fiscal issue, but I think we can still make a recommendation. Is there any thought about
can I make a
capping that?
recommendation? Maybe if through the chair, you would like to make a motion, and the planning commission agrees, that since we're working on our impact fees currently, that administration brings a discussion item on, prior to going to the board on the impact fees.
And what are the thoughts of the commission?
I agree with that.
I would agree with that as well. We're trying to, yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Do we need a motion to bring that to the admin, or a consensus work?
Consensus works.
Okay, perfect. Now I'm trying to keep my pages in order. Page 297, top of the page. That's otherwise known as 26 of 86. Item 4, storage of recreational vehicles. And then it refers to section 2507.015D3. And I don't think that was the correct section. I think it should have been E, standard for motor vehicle repair and storage, or did I misunderstand that?
Okay, so okay, 2507015D3.
That refers to outdoor storage standards,
Okay, let me go look.
if I'm reading everything correctly.
Let me just double check.
You know where 2507?
Page 244. And I think I'm reading it
D.
correctly. We should go to section E. Because D3, or am I reading that right?
Because
Am I getting lost?
D has to do with standards for outdoor storage, and E has to do with motor vehicle repair and storage.
015.
That's what I was confused about, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
seek clarification.
Okay, so 2507015 is outdoor storage and display. And then
Actually,
D
See, I don't know, that's why I wanted to bring it up.
relates to standards for outdoor storage. Storage of recreational vehicles. Storage of recreational vehicles shall comply with provisions of outdoors.
could we just say comply with section 25.07.015 and not specify the D3 or the E3?
We can.
Sure. I just didn't want it to send people to the wrong
Right.
thing, and they'll be like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they'll have to read the whole 2507.015, but that's fine.
Permitted on.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what am I asking on page
I'll ask.
245?
Page
Commissioner Scalabrini.
245, I forgot to ask. Right below where he says, paragraph 4B, all work performed on a motor vehicle shall be permitted only during the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Is that like in a residential area, or is that for commercial? Where's that at?
Yeah, residential zones.
If it's a residential zone, that doesn't seem like very good.
You don't want them working until 10 p.m., you're saying?
Not if they're making a lot of noise, no. I missed that one.
Okay.
Again, there, though,
the
it
page
depends on-
20
It depends on the
of 86.
situation.
Nature of the repair. I mean, if you're doing,
Okay,
If you're using impact, that's not so hot.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a tough one.
yeah.
I mean, that kind of, does that conform with like the building standards? You can't make noise before 7 a.m. and it has to be ended.
Right? It's a noise ordinance kind of.
Yeah.
Our construction ordinance is generally 7 to 7. I think that, well, the thought had maybe been you have someone working in their garage, doing their thing, and not trying to completely impose on.
I didn't figure it out that way. That's fine.
Yeah, if they're doing this as a side job, maybe they've got a full-time job during the day, and the only time they can do this is in the evenings. And if it's not late in the evening, it's probably okay.
If they're not bothering people, then
Exactly.
it'll become a code enforcement
It'll
issue.
become yeah,
But
fine.
we don't want to squeeze people, especially given the economy
And
of
we
today.
still have the noise ordinance. If somebody's making a ton of noise, then they can still make a complaint.
My next one was page 310, paragraph 2A about the construction of the kennels. It says, all kennels shall be constructed as follows: concrete, asphalt, or other non-porous material. Asphalt gets hot.
Okay.
Is that, you're not supposed to even walk your dog, I think, above 82 degrees on asphalt. So
It
I
was,
saw that and I was like,
I think because they're indoor, but we can take out.
so these are indoor? I would think concrete would be better because it's less porous as well if you're trying
Okay.
to wash it.
Yeah, that's a real good.
PCs kind of sticks to things.
Okay, so remove.
Eliminate asphalt.
Yes.
Yeah, it should be just concrete.
Okay.
Then page 313, lot size, the minimum for stables, commercial. The minimum lot size shall be 2.5 for a commercial stable. I don't know about that.
I missed that one. That's too small.
Yeah,
It's, E1 lot size.
That does seem small.
5 even seems small for a commercial stable, but I don't want to get too restrictive. But at the same time, I don't want to. What are your thoughts, Mister? Since you deal with horses,
Yeah. 5 is too small if you're going to be commercial. You got to go 10 for commercial. Private is fine at 5 if you have your own horses, 2, 3, 4 horses, whatever. 5 is fine. If you're doing commercial, you're going to have 10 or 15 to make it viable. And where I keep my horse, the lady has to rent 5 acres behind her to get rid of the horse manure. So I would say that should be a commercial. I'd say 10 acres.
is there a consensus? 10?
Yeah.
Commissioner Ringhayden?
I don't have a horse, so I'd have to rely on your expertise.
Okay.
Exactly.
Then 10 acres it
Exactly.
is. And let's keep, I screwed up the pages, didn't I? Well, I'm never going to look at it again. Next is page 319. What did I do? Oh, no, we already talked about the ground-mounted gizmos. Oop. Page 347. Movable tiny homes, foundation or pad. A paved parking pad shall be required. What is paved? Why can't base rock be sufficient if it's a movable home? Does it need to be, what is paved? Is it concrete, asphalt?
Asphalt is paved. Asphalt is paved.
So I didn't understand that and I wanted to know why.
Let me check that that's not referring back to EDA requirements.
Okay.
Fucking C or B?
Let me let me check with our building official on
Okay.
that one.
And then on D, mechanical equipment shall be incorporated into the structure and not located on the roof except for solar panels. I'm a big fan of satellite internet, and you want it on the roof so there's no obstruction. So I don't want to say, well, you can have solar because that's just, green and everything, but you can't have satellite. So I would like to be more permissive and say something about satellite internet or something to that effect.
Okay.
Yeah, we could say except for solar panels or satellite equipment.
Okay. Consensus?
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic. Look at this. We're chugging along. 40 acres. Distance from sensitive, page 353. Are we good with 1,000 feet from any existing occupied dwelling or any building housing institutional uses such as schools and churches? This was for the outdoor range. Was that a standard we picked out of the NRA book? It's been so long since we talked about it. I forgot everything that we. 353.
Top number 3.
Number 3.
And this is for outdoor. No?
Outdoor. Yeah,
Yeah.
outdoor.
Which one, Robert?
1,000 feet, number 3 at the top. No, page 353.
53.
Because I was trying to think of a 40-acre parcel. I guess it depends how it's diced up, but
We have gone back and forth and with different numbers and feet. And the last we had landed was on 1,000, but with fresh set of eyes.
okay. I just wanted to bring it up and see if there's any,
That one, because we did that because of the problem we had out on Las Fibras Road,
oh, okay.
sensitive areas.
Okay, sounds good. So we talked about it. Let us move on. And I only have one more little sticky tab, but that might be in another section. Oh, that's tasting rooms. That's definitions. We haven't
Yep,
hit
I
that
have
part
one-
yet.
I have one in there too.
Okay, so I think that's it, unless we, okay, let's proceed to the next section, please.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ariel.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys for all the meetings and back and forth and reviewing. I know this is a lot of work, but oh no. But it is appreciated, and we will probably be doing this again because, well, it's easier to consistently update pieces than to have to only do it once every 40 years. That's not,
Are we giving public comment on
We're not done yet, are we?
no.
section with all of?
We'll do public comment at the end, just so it'll be more concise. We still have more to cover, right, before we go to more questions?
Yeah, just the glossary, that's the last section. And so this is the list of definitions we kind of added or amended. So if you want to go to any one definition, I can pull those up.
Commissioner Wade?
Yeah, I just want to point out that there is a definition in here of crowing fowl, and it specifically includes peafowl. Oddly, but it's in there, so.
Okay.
If we want to amend that, we'll want to keep in mind that the glossary will need some changing as well.
Okay.
Okay, any other definitions?
No.
I do. Tasting room.
Okay.
An off-site location for sampling of wine, beer, or spirits produced exclusively within the county, as many as 4 producers. And I don't see why there's a limit. With the cost of the equipment to produce spirits, beer, or wine, I don't want to limit it. If 20 people want to get together in a facility and share the facility, I do not want to get the government in the way.
But then we'll delete that sentence if that's,
Is there a consensus to
Yes.
be permissive?
Yeah, I don't see a reason to restrict
Okay.
it to 4.
Okay. And that's all I had. Did anyone else have anything before we go to public comment?
Nope.
Seeing none, public comment, please.
If you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card, and on Zoom, use the raise hand icon feature by dialing *9. There appears to be no public comment.
Okay. So we already took care of 5.1. Is there a motion to bring back all the changes at the September meeting for 6.1?
I make a motion, we bring back all changes for the September meeting.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Wow, we did better than I thought. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nobody wants to stay? This meeting is adjourned. I thank you all very much for all your hard work and your participation.
Thank you, staff, very much.